So Cam, this new album, The Otherside, it's coming out on the 30th of October. It was written over the course of 3 years in Nashville, Los Angeles and New York. Once again, you're working with collaborators Tyler Johnson and Jeff Basker, but I noticed there's also an impressively diverse range of songwriting credits on there as well. People like Harry Styles, Sam Smith, and even the late Avicii. It's obviously been 5 years since the release of your last album, Untamed, and within that time, a lot has happened in your life, personally and professionally. So tell me a bit about the process of making this album.
Yeah, it has been a second. And I think since Untamed and since Burning House being such a commercial hit, I think it just set me on a path to feel like I could do what I wanted musically and not have to fit into a box, which has been amazing. So, then comes Diane, which is also an amazing response to see in your neck of the woods too. Just everybody kind of being on board for where this new album was headed. And I was putting it together after so much touring and thinking my voice can do even more now. So I really want to make an album that is centered around the vocals 100%. And then support, my songwriting, which is kind of psychology background based, where it's just like a lot of pulling from the subconscious, wrapping it in a story and trying to do healing, usually some piece that I needed said out loud. And then, it's been a really fun process to sort of support those healing moments and those vocals that are hopefully sounding authentic and really getting to you. Support that with whatever production feels right, not trying to break rules on purpose and not trying to be inside the lanes of things on purpose. Just doing, the purpose is to somehow have the magic sauce in a sonic way that hits you and you say, oh, that was me. Like, I remember the time that I wasn't ready to feel the whole truth of someone saying goodbye. I remember when I fell in love and didn't think it was going to be real because I was too afraid to say that this was going to be the time that it worked, and like all that to say, I think it's been me working through things in my own life. Also, there's been a label switch, getting married, having a baby. And I do have to say, in this chapter of my life, I do think for whatever reason, it happens for different people at different times. My idea of the world definitely got shattered. Like, my understanding of how things work out and good and bad and right and wrong, like, turns out the Disney movies weren't fully correct. And I think a lot of us are having that happen right now too, but it's heartbreaking when your first idea of how things work ends up not being what you think, and trying to reach that idea of it over and over, and then finally just having it break. You feel like when you identify with it so much, you feel like you're broken too. Mm-hmm. So the last song on the record, Girl Like Me, that's when you hear me sort of like a note from the author at the end of the book. And I just say, man, I don't know if anyone's told you this, but people that you trust are going to do you wrong. People are going to give up on you. You're going to give up on them. And then what? Do you stay broken and jaded and that's it? Or do you learn what I'm learning right now? And some people have already learned this, but that you got to accept the good and the bad that's in everybody in the world, that's such a mixed bag, and you're such a mixed bag. And how do you hold space for that without being angry about it? And yeah, so that's sort of like my whole journey. And now I'm on the other side of it, of this understanding. So that's why I called it The Other Side. And I hope everybody gets to hear pieces of themselves in all these songs.
That's very interesting, because I got sent the album yesterday. I've listened to it 4 times already. And what you've just said completely puts that into sort of a proper lane of context. I mean, that last song in particular, Girl Like Me, I must have just hit repeat. It reminded me a bit of like something like a Billy Joel or even Casey Musgrave's Rainbow.
Yeah, well, Natalie Hemby wrote on it.
Yeah.
So that's the Rainbow influence that you're hearing. And Billy Joel, I mean, I love that. I think his vulnerability in his storytelling, I sometimes like I really wanted to write, when I wrote Palace with Sam Smith for his album, I was thinking about that Billy Joel, in every heart there is a room, a sanctuary safe and strong, you know. So that kind of storytelling, that it isn't about, oh, there's a banjo, so we're in country music, you know, like country music, I think, allows people to be very honest and try to be as relatable as possible for as many people. I think that's really important. There's not a pretense to it. That's what I think country music is. But yeah, I feel like this album and that song obviously like really encapsulates what I had to go through to sort of pull these stories out and get them to where they're at. But there's definitely something, what I love is that I always kind of tick off the colors that I'm hitting and make sure I don't have too much of one thing, because I loved growing up to soundtracks and mixtapes, and I get bored with, you know, all the same thing. Like I want one song, I fall in love with it, I listen to it 8 million times and I wear it out, and then I find the other song where I'm like, oh, this now hits differently because it's happening to me, and this is my song now, and I listen to that 8 million times. So I try and make an album that what I would want to listen to, where you get to fall in love with one song at a different time in your life. And, you know, hopefully that's what I made for everybody.
Well, all I'll say to you is, right, as a radio presenter who lives in a world of sort of overproduced, understandably commercial country, this album reminded me why I fell in love with the genre.
Oh, thanks. That's a really big compliment. I really appreciate that. I think, I don't know if you've seen it on your end recently, but I feel like there's a softness that people have right now in what the whole world is sort of having to face from different perspectives, but everyone's kind of looking, you know, at a similar abyss and processing it in their own way. And there's sort of everyone seems to be willing to go deeper and be more vulnerable, you know, despite what the news says. That's what I've been sort of seeing in people. There's sort of like a softness, and I love that, because that's what I think I like to go to anyways, like for myself and my music. And definitely this year isn't about, you'll see a lot of artists and people like pushing releases back because the music business, the business part of it isn't, they haven't figured out how to capitalize exactly right to make the most money of it right now. But I think that's why people who are putting out music right now, it's not about the business, it's about the music. And that's why we've had music in every culture since the beginning of cultures, is because we actually as human beings need music to be together. And that there's no way to overstate that importance. And so that compliment makes me feel like I'm doing my job.
So I gotta say, you know, the new single Classic, I feel like, you know, it is exactly what we need right now. It's got that feel good bouncy, almost like there's a Simon and Garfunkel Cecilia vibe. Yes.
Did you read that I say that all the time?
No, I was just when I heard that. Yeah.
All the time. That's my example of what I think that song is. I love this. This is great.
But correct me, right, settle this story if it's true or not, this rumor, because I've heard one that this song kind of was born out of an experience when you were traveling in Argentina with your husband, Adam, and he found some Lucky Strike cigarettes and said that line, they don't make them like that anymore.
Yeah, and he goes, that's a country song. And I said, yeah, it is. Let me just take that. And he still every now and then will roll over in bed and be like, you know, you could give me credit for something. And I'm like, we're married. Why do I have to? You know, at some point I probably do have to give him credit. But I'll give him credit right here, right now. He came up with that line. And Jack and I were sitting in the, you know, Electric Ladyland Studios, which is the Jimi Hendrix spot in New York. And he kind of has this bouncy feeling. Like most artists, I think I can get so torturous with myself. Like, this is not good enough. Don't even suggest that out loud. You know, all those kinds of feelings in your mind. And he just sits down and makes it so much fun. Like, I didn't realize making music could be such a good time. And he's sitting there bouncing around and throwing out, oh yeah, this, that. And it bounces back and forth and the energy picks up and he goes, yeah, this is so great. And he just, you know, by the end of it, you feel like you've just run a little sprint and you look at each other like, wow, okay, I mean, we did it. That's the song. And it's such a fun, was a fun process that I think you can hear how it's sort of cooked into that song. And that I thought that was such a cute thing to say. And it sort of is, not to make everything so deep, but I feel like you have all these trends that come and go, but there are the people in your life that outlast all that. And it's kind of a nice reminder that nothing's permanent, but there are some people that sure do stick around, from bad hairstyle to bad hairstyle.
What, you mentioned there Jack Antonoff, obviously, being a fan of some of the artists he's even worked with aside from yourself, and from watching interviews and reading a bit about Jeff Basker and again, the artists he's worked with, he seems like, obviously I've never met the guy, but he seems a bit like a genius, but on his own planet. Is Jack Antonoff a bit the same?
I think you just nailed Jeff. It's really amazing. But I love that about Jeff because kind of like, and I will answer the Jack part, but it reminds me of what Avicii and Tim is like, he was such a person that did what he did because he was following his vision and staying true to it. And it wasn't about making people comfortable in the room. And that same thing with Jeff, some people might say things to artists to make them feel good or whatever, but that's not why we're here. The point is, we're just trying to make something great, so I really appreciate people that approach it like that. And Jeff, has been a huge influence, so I appreciate that. Jack is someone who he's just so fun to be around. He's such an easy person. And I only, got to work with him this one song. And then it was and I remember blurting out at one point, I feel like you had a great childhood. I don't know what something about you. And that's so inappropriate to say, but he had just done The Chicks, and, I love St. Vincent, and obviously Taylor, the songs he does with her are incredible. So he just seems to be exploring things at his own rate and just doing what feels right, and not really he doesn't seem too tethered to this is how it should be. It's just it seems like he's following a current, and it seems to go in a good direction, and I like that too. That's something he's maybe more in the Sam and Harry camp too, where people, I think they're people I admire because they're just trying to be true to what their gut's telling them and make their art the best reflection of themselves in that moment. And which is very hard to be, honest about your feelings and who you are and all that stuff too, and give that to your art. So I like being around those kinds of people.
And the video for Classic, it's this sort of visual feast of 1950s glitz and glamour. I know it was filmed at the White Limousine. It's a new rooftop bar at the Graduate Hotel in Nashville. What's it practically like to film a music video during a pandemic?
Not for the faint of heart, my
That answers the question.
There are plenty of more difficult things people are facing these days. But to be honest, it's a lot of unknowns and a lot of insurance and red tape and new protocols that are changing, and sets that a lot of places don't want to film right now, understandably so. They don't want to be at risk. And, so even if you're saying I've got the whole cleaning crew coming in before and after, everyone's going to be in masks and distance, and it's a very small, you can say all the right things and people still, they're not comfortable. So it meant a lot that, they saw what we were putting together and, felt comforted by what we were going to be doing and trusted us to pull that off. But it was, of course, a headache to pull off all those different things. And we got there, we were going to film, so we were not really exposed to anyone. I had to get there at midnight, and then we filmed until 4 p.m. the next day. So we were out of the way of anyone before the bar opened and all that kind of stuff. And, I was so exhausted, knowing this was going to be happening, but it was so funny. People are so happy to be working and see each other that once we got on site with all the headaches, all the exhaustion, I think you could tell everyone, behind their mask, how you could see everyone smiling. Everybody was smiling the whole time because we were just so thrilled to be doing something, and in such a bright, cheery place like that. But I think everybody was just we're here. There's a job, you know, so.
And the album also features the previous releases, Redwood Tree, and as you say, you know, the massive Diane. I want to ask you about Till There's Nothing Left, because I love that song. It's got this like lazy, hypnotic, almost like genre bending beat running through it.
Yeah.
I saw you did the most spectacular performance of it on America's Got Talent, and you had two blindfolded acrobats swinging above you.
I know.
I know this was a collaboration with Tyler, Jeff, and was it Hillary Lindsay? Tell me how it sort of came together.
Yeah, we were out in LA, and Hillary and Tyler and I had started one session one day, and we didn't really catch anything. And then that night, Hillary hung around with Ty, and Lindsay, my manager, was over there too. They were just hanging out, and I'm drinking wine. All of a sudden, Hillary started playing this beat and singing this la 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 la. I don't know. And they sent me this voice, you know, kind of wine-induced voice note. I was like, whoa, that is cool. So we started working on it the next day with Jeff and started writing these lyrics. And it, you know, really comes from what you're saying, that beat and the like kind of laid back, steamy, hypnotic's great. And they, yeah, we kind of, obviously you take inspiration from that mood and put into it this sort of like, I'm giving you everything until there's nothing left, like physically, spiritually, emotionally, all that kind of stuff. And we finished the song, and I remember I was singing the vocals, you know, and trying to like, you want it to be present, but you want it to have this restraint. And it's like a really fun thing to sort of sit into, that flavor. And I kind of started getting a little embarrassed. Not, I mean, and obviously in private, you know, like I do have quickies in the backseat with my husband, you know, but am I singing about that to everybody, you know? And it was like, it had a moment of my grandma who, you know, gave me the sex talk famously. My mom obviously didn't realize this was happening, but she said, sex is like a milkshake. And once you have it, you're always going to want it. And it was like kind of this like, you know, small town farm girl explanation, but she owned it. And it sort of reminded me this, there's a lot to this discussion, but like how women, that's like a forbidden power over men or whatever, this sexuality. So it's like, if you indulge in that, it's sort of like demeaned publicly. And then if, you know, it's not the power that you're supposed to be using, but that whether you're pushing it away or like hanging on to it too tightly, I think it just deserves to be a part of your human experience. And it's, you know, it's mine too. And so I get to own it and express it how I want to express it. And I thought it was kind of funny looking back at that music video I did 8 months pregnant. So I had the fancy Gucci shirt stretch over my big ass belly. And I had thought of this, oh, it's like the end of the world. And that's why everyone gets to be who they want to be. I was like, oh my God, it takes the end of the world to let go of the social norms in your mind. Just like, that's dark. Maybe you should do it before the end of the world.
So we last spoke last September, actually in Belfast. It was about half an hour before you played your first ever concert in the City of the Empire. I told you that the country fans in Belfast are just crazy, and I mean they nearly took the roof off the place that night. Do you have any memories in particular of that gig, but also how much right now are you looking forward to the day when you can just go out on what we would have considered to be a normal tour with this new album?
I know. I have to say, I remember you were on the bus and you were telling me like, oh, it's going to be crazy. I was like, oh yeah, sure. You know, because that was my first gig out there. So I was thinking, you know, you usually have to slowly build where you're going. And I was floored. Like I'm pretty sure there were like soccer chants going on at one point between coming back out. And it was so much fun. Like everybody was rowdy, but in a way that was still all about the music. Yeah. It was just, that is my kind of crowd. That was so fun. And I remember getting on the bus afterwards and we immediately, like I called my booking agent. I was like, we are coming back here. This is insane. I have to be back here. So we've been planning. I mean, the fun thing is it's going to be putting this album out, I'm putting out some fun things for people to sort of enjoy at home, like these cool visual loops and a tarot card, thing, like things that you can do online, live streams or whatever. But next year, fingers crossed, but when the actual floodgates are opened, oh my God, we are going to have such a time. It is going to be so good. And like, so in a way, I feel like no one will take that, sticky beer under your feet for granted, or that smelly person rubbing up next to you, or that too tall guy in front of you. We'll all just be like, yes, we are happy to be here. So I'm so excited.
I thought you were talking about me there with the second one. It was a couple of weeks after the Belfast show you announced you were pregnant, and then last December yourself and Adam welcomed your daughter Lucy. How has becoming a parent, how has that changed things?
We went out for Till There's Nothing Left. When we started the promotion of that, we went out to New York for TV stuff, and it was really fun. I was like, this is my new world. I'm bringing the baby with me, and it's tough, figuring out how to juggle it all. And Adam was with me, and it was really fun, tiring, but really fun. And then the world sort of shut down, and I've gotten this maternity leave that I never thought I'd get, which is incredible to sort of watch a baby that was kind of more like a potato turn into smiles and like a sense of humor and standing and babbling. So it's been a huge gift this time to have with her. I mean, I'll never forget that. And I think just sort of a lesson in slowing down and sort of reevaluating time away versus time home and how to really balance that. I think being a mom helps me just like, it's kind of like the best excuse ever. Like if you have someone ask you to do something you don't want to do, you're like, a baby. It's kind of amazing to do that. But I think it helps streamline like what I want to do and how I want to say things, and sort of reminds you like in posterity or whatever, will she be proud of what I'm doing? So trying to do that and make her proud, or not embarrassed at least, I guess.
Has Lucy sort of becoming the priority in your life, and this unexpected time off this year because of the pandemic, has that maybe, because I know you're an incredibly ambitious person and it's always from one goal to the next, but has this time sort of forced you to take a step back and sort of really take on board what you have managed to achieve?
Yeah, I think it's sunk, things that are like success or whatever, they never really quite sink in. It's kind of, I like country music though, because I feel like a lot of the people stay humble about it and kind of just enjoy their families, and sort of, it's a little sweet in that way, kind of when you run into people and what you talk about. But I still feel like when someone, starts like, oh, like, do you realize how much Burning House is sold at this point? Like, it's crazy, like, I don't know if that really fully sinks in, but I think it has maybe not lessened my ambition, but just like sharpened what is meaningful. So the shows I want to play and the way I want to play those shows, like that's going to take first priority. Okay. Instead of being like, I'll just do any show for any reason and whatever. I don't have to do that. And I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I just want to play and do the gigs that I want to do, the interviews I want to do, and the things that make me happy and are worth juggling her time and my time with that, and I think, also just the stuff kind of behind the scenes on the industry side, just making sure the efforts that are coming in to try and make sure we have more equal opportunity for a lot of these great artists, that we're missing out on a lot of art right now from a lot of incredible people because they happen to be the wrong color or gender, ability or whatever. So I think that also feels a little bit more, not urgent, but it takes a bigger priority, I think, too, just with her around.
Okay, and just final question, Cam, because you've been so generous with your time. I have to say, I feel like this year, other than any other genre, the artists within country music have been the most creative and productive despite what's happening in capitalizing on live streaming and still finding a way to connect with their fans, whereas other artists in different genres maybe have just sort of, there's maybe taken a year off, it seems. I know in August you did a live stream concert at the Ryman. You've got an album release concert coming up at the Bluebird, which I can't wait to watch. But how are you finding right now, like sitting at home and promoting an album through Zoom and live streams as opposed to getting out there in people's faces with the songs?
I miss being in people's faces, but I really don't miss the airplanes and all that kind of stuff. So, and getting up early, and now I can speak to people in New York and Atlanta and Belfast and London and Australia, and I can do it all from my house and breastfeed my kid and then jump back on. So it's actually kind of nice, to be honest. So I do miss people and shows 100%. But I think part of this hopefully will manage, the easier part of it hopefully will manage to stay a part of this even when things go back to normal.
Well, listen, Cam, thank you as always. I mean, so much for doing this. Good luck with this album. I have to say, it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up for me between this and Brett Eldridge's Sunday Drive for the two best albums this year.
Thanks.
But the best of luck with it. And again, we can't wait to see you back on stage in Belfast.
Yes, I appreciate it. I'll see you soon.
Cheers, Cam. Bye.